Welcome back to the History Bypass, history enthusiasts. Today, we are delving into the life of one of the most influential figures of the 20th century, Fidel Castro. Known for his revolutionary ideals and leadership, Castro left an indelible mark on Cuba and the world. In this video, we'll explore various aspects of Castro's life, from his early years to his rise to power, his policies, and the lasting impact of his rule. So, let's dive into the fascinating story of Fidel Castro, early life and education. Fidel Castro was born on August 13, 1926, in Byron, Cuba. Coming from a relatively affluent family, he received a solid education and eventually pursued law studies at the University of Havana. During his time at the university, Castro developed a passion for politics and activism, driven by the social inequalities and corruption he witnessed in Cuba. The road to revolution. Inspired by the Cuban revolutionary José Martí, Castro embarked on a path that would change the course of his life and his country. In 1953, he led an unsuccessful attack on the Moncada barracks, an event that became a turning point in Cuban history. Although the attack failed, it helped spark a nationwide movement against the dictatorial regime of Fulgencio Batista, guerrilla warfare, and the Cuban Revolution. Following his arrest and subsequent release, Castro fled to Mexico, where he met Ernesto Che Guevara. Together, they formed a revolutionary force and began planning for a guerrilla war against Batista's government. In 1956, Castro and his comrades, known as the 26th of July movement, sailed back to Cuba and initiated a guerrilla campaign in the Sierra Maestra Mountains. Rise to power and policies. In 1959, after a long and arduous struggle, Castro and his revolutionaries overthrew Batista's regime, marking the beginning of Castro's rule. As the Prime Minister of Cuba, and later as the President, Castro implemented several policies aimed at transforming the country. Land reforms, nationalization of industries, and the establishment of a planned economy were among his key initiatives. Domestic and international impact. Castro's policies had a profound impact on Cuban society. On the positive side, his government achieved significant improvements in healthcare, education, and social welfare. Cuba became a global leader in healthcare, with high literacy rates and free education for all. However, his regime also faced criticism for its suppression of political dissent, lack of democratic institutions, and restrictions on civil liberties. The Cold War and relationship with the United States. Castro's rise to power occurred during the height of the Cold War, and his socialist policies made Cuba a focal point of tension between the United States and the Soviet Union. The failed Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961 and the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 were critical moments that shaped the relationship between Castro's Cuba and the United States. Legacy and end of an era. Fidel Castro ruled Cuba for nearly 5 decades before stepping down due to health issues in 2008. His leadership left a lasting impact on Cuba and the world. While some view him as a champion of social justice and anti-imperialism, others criticize his authoritarian rule and human rights record. After his death on November 25, 2016, Castro's brother, Raúl Castro, took over as the leader of Cuba. Following Fidel Castro's retirement, his brother Raúl Castro assumed the presidency, continuing many of the policies established during Fidel's rule. Under Raúl's leadership, Cuba underwent some significant changes, including economic reforms aimed at opening up the country to foreign investment and entrepreneurship. These reforms sought to modernize Cuba's economy while maintaining the socialist principles that Fidel Castro had championed. However, even with the changes initiated by Raúl, Fidel Castro's influence continued to shape the country. Fidel remained a revered figure in Cuba, and his ideologies and legacy remain deeply ingrained in the national consciousness. Despite facing economic challenges and the effects of the long-standing U.S. embargo, Cuba maintained its commitment to socialism and continued to prioritize social welfare programs. The impact of Fidel Castro's rule extended beyond Cuba's borders. Castro was a staunch advocate for anti-imperialism and sought to spread his revolutionary ideals throughout Latin America and other parts of the world. Cuba supported numerous liberation movements and provided military and logistical assistance to revolutionary groups in countries such as Angola, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. This earned Castro both admirers and detractors on the global stage. In terms of foreign relations, Cuba's relationship with the United States remained complicated throughout Fidel Castro's rule. The U.S. embargo on Cuba, initiated in the early 1960s, aimed to isolate and economically cripple the island nation. Despite the embargo, Castro managed to build alliances with other nations, particularly the Soviet Union during the Cold War. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 posed significant challenges for Cuba's economy, leading to what was referred to as the special period, marked by economic hardship and scarcity. In recent years, there have been some notable shifts in Cuba's relationship with the United States. In 2014, Raul Castro and then U.S. President Barack Obama announced a thaw in diplomatic relations, leading to the reopening of embassies and the easing of some travel and trade restrictions. However, these changes were reversed to some extent under the subsequent U.S. administration. The future of U.S.-Cuba relations remains uncertain, and it will be interesting to see how they develop in the coming years. In conclusion, Fidel Castro's impact on Cuba and the world cannot be overstated. His revolutionary spirit, dedication to socialism, and resistance against imperialism shaped Cuba's destiny for decades. Castro's policies and leadership brought about significant changes in Cuban society, particularly in healthcare, education, and social welfare. However, his rule was also marked by restrictions on civil liberties and political dissent. Fidel Castro's legacy is a complex one, with passionate supporters and vocal critics. As Cuba continues to navigate the challenges of the 21st century, Fidel Castro's imprint on the island nation will endure as a testament to his enduring influence and the era he helped define. This is it for today. Subscribe to our channel for more insightful content on global issues. We will see you in the next video. Until then, take care. Bye bye.